How's it going, my gamer friends and retro gaming fans? Today we've got the review of the new Anbernic Slide, which slid its way into our lives. Get the reference? Okay, that wasn't very good. Let's get to the review. Welcome to the Oasis. For some reason, Anbernic stopped sending me their retro consoles, but even if they had, the opinion in this video are mine and no one else's. But let's get into the quick unboxing. Ooh, it's not just the console that slides. We have an envelope with a screen protector that will cover the entire front of the device, wipes for applying the protector, a small box with a USB-A to USB-C cable and analog caps, and the device itself. And for first impressions, man, check out this behemoth. This thing is huge, much bigger than I expected. That's what she said. Look at it next to the Retroid Pocket Flip 2. For those unfamiliar with this handheld, it's awesome, and I just reviewed it here on the channel. I'll leave the link for you over here. Now, the fact that it's so big has a certain advantage. We have full-size controls in a slide handheld. On the RG34XX SP, we have flatter controls, so we don't have problems when we close the screen. On the Slide, you have classic size controls that will give you a more complete experience. Okay, it's big and heavy, and we'll talk more about that later. But wow, this thing is stylish as hell. Just like I kept opening and closing the Flip 2 for no reason, I keep sliding this thing up and down because it's really cool. Let's get to the specs. Pause here, check it out. But quickly, I'll tell you what matters. T820 chip, 8 GB of RAM and 128 GB of internal storage. We basically have the same specs as the RG556, 406H, 406V, etc. And we have a 4.7-inch 960p LCD screen with up to 120Hz refresh rate. We have two colors available, this white one and a black one. And it's available on Anbernic's website for about $185 plus shipping. And it can be purchased with a 128 or 256 GB memory card full of games. I left the purchase link for you in the description. Whoa, if you've made this far into the video, my friend, we are practically family now. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our laid-back reviews. Much obliged. On the front, we have the giant screen, the two speakers, a function button on the left, and a back button on the right. On the left side of the device, we have the memory card slot. On the right, the volume buttons and the power button. At the bottom, the headphone jack, LED indicator light, and the USB-C port for charging, which also serves as a video output with 1080p support. On top, only the shoulder buttons, which are unfortunately aligned. Seriously, Anbernic? And on the back, the air intake and exhaust vents, since this handheld has active cooling. Let's move on to the controls, starting with the D-pad. And yes, this is the most classic D-pad you'll find on a retro handheld today. It reminds me of older D-pads like those on the Super Nintendo and the original Game Boy, and Anbernic has been consistently using it on their devices. And there's no complaining because it's excellent. It's not too soft that you feel like you're pressing a pudding, not too hard that your fingers beg for mercy after 5 minutes of Street Fighter. It's the perfect balance, the ideal symbiosis between click and smoothness. You'll find yourself pulling off combos you swore you'd forgotten, unleashing Hadoukens like there's no tomorrow, and discovering that in fact you still have the motor skills to play Castlevania without falling into every hole. Oh, and it has 0 false diagonals, which is awesome. Moving on to the analog sticks, I know we've been disappointed with several models out there, especially those widely used on cheaper devices and the first Switch, which are a nightmare for drift and just feel like a toy from a Kinder Egg. These, like the company's latest premium device, the RG557, are a step above the ones with Hall sensors. Apparently, they feature TMR technology with faster response and are even less prone to drift and interference than those with Hall sensors. And I tell you, they are truly incredible. These analog sticks are a joy for playing titles available on Game Pass via streaming, and they came perfectly calibrated. I didn't need to adjust anything on them. What might be a problem for some people is the fact that their surface is quite small. and as I used them, I felt my fingers slipping a little bit. But I think that's due to their position and the ergonomics of the device, because I didn't have this problem with the RG557. But don't worry, because this is easily solved with these analog caps that Anbernic included in the box. They have a powerful rubber grip, and these grooves here won't let your fingers slip for anything. But I gotta tell you, it was a pain to fit them onto the thumbsticks. Fortunately though, they are very thin and you can close the handheld with them in place. It rubs a little, but then returns to the neutral position. Thank goodness, because if I had to put them and take them off every time I played, I'd quickly give up using them. The thumbsticks are super soft with just the right amount of resistance for me, and their range is great considering the size. Honestly, I have nothing to complain about these analog sticks. In the case of the face buttons, Anbernic maintained the standard of its most recent premium consoles. They have a classic size, perfect for a retro handheld. They are glossy with a smooth surface, making them very comfortable. They have a medium travel and don't give that feeling of sinking a finger into old jelly. The resistance is subtle, and when pressed, they remain above the level of the casing. Everything is just right for a pleasant gaming experience. Now, different buttons. Anyone who truly plays knows the shoulder buttons are crucial for the fluidity of many games, whether for aiming, using items, or making that quick dash. And let's be honest, many handhelds fall short on shoulder buttons. Either they are in the wrong or uncomfortable position, or they have a shape that makes your fingers slip at the crucial moment. And that's exactly the kind of button you find on the RG Slide. Seriously, Anbernic? Aligned buttons in 2025? No pressure triggers on a premium device? Yes, that's one of the weakest points of this device. These heresies they've put here. They are clicky with those micro switches, and I confess I've learned to love these buttons, especially when implemented on the face buttons and D-pad, but not on the triggers. I can let it slide when it's a device that runs a more limited number of systems, like the RG40XX-H, for example. But on a handheld that runs some heavier systems and can stream games from the cloud, it ends up being an affront to good manners. And even the RG40XX-H has stacked buttons like this. This type of layout helps a lot with ergonomics. And come on, check out this little bump here. They could have done that on the Slide. Then you say, they didn't want to make the device bigger than it already is. And I say, are you kidding me? Look at the size of this beast. For me, this little bump wouldn't make the slightest difference and it would still improve ergonomics. The device is already big anyway. What's a fart to someone who's already pooped themselves? Okay, since I mentioned ergonomics, let's talk about it. I think for retro games that use only the D-pad and the face buttons, it's excellent. Everything works well and there's nothing to complain about. If I wanted to be a little nitpicky, I'd say that since the device is a bit heavy for its size, and for those retro games I mentioned, you hold it more on the bottom. After a while, I can feel the weight more on the top, and consequently, some discomfort in my index fingers that are supporting the back. But it's nothing absurd, it's perfectly playable. Now, if it's a game that uses the shoulder buttons more often, then it's a different story. We have the advantage of the index fingers rising a bit and giving more support on the top, with the weight not bothering as much. But your thumbs end up being more bent and in an awkward position this way. Not to mention that with the aligned shoulder buttons, it's much harder to have the precision we need in shooting games when pressing L2 and R2. The ergonomics improve a bit more in games that use both analog sticks at the same time, leaving the thumbs in a more neutral position. But the precision problems with the triggers will still persist. It's certainly not the best ergonomics on a handheld, but it will be up to the user to adapt, or get finger cramps. I said the RG Slide was a bit heavy, but here's the actual weight, approximately 380 grams. Look at the 40XX-H, for example, a little over 200 grams. Even the 557, which is a much larger device, is lighter at a little over 350 grams. Yeah, 380 grams for this little guy here, that's quite heavy. Here, it's to show its size when closed, next to other handhelds. Let's move to build quality. When you first hold the RG Slide, it feels solid. Forget the creaking plastic of a PAL-kitted device or loosey-feeling parts. Here, Anbernic has put effort into the engineering, like with most of the company's devices. The handheld is robust, dense in just the right measure, and instills confidence that it's a quality piece of hardware. It's as if it's saying, you can throw me in your backpack, you can take me into battle, I can handle it. The plastic is matte, with a certain texture that helps it not to slip easily in your hand. And the all-glass front looks really cool. If you keep touching the screen with your sticky fingers every 5 seconds, yes, it will get full of fingerprints. But who cares? They're metals, battle scars of someone who truly plays. The construction is truly impeccable, with no rough edges, no strange gaps. The fittings are precise, and the slide mechanism, which is the charm of the whole thing, slides smoothly without giving the impression that it will jam or break at any moment. They used a very strong spring here, which every time I open and close, I have to hold it back because otherwise it goes with too much force. Have a look at it if I let it hit. Yeah, it pains me. But the slide is very strong. They put an aluminum back and everything is very firm and solid. And this feeling of durability is crucial because no one wants to have a heart attack if their handheld falls off the couch. Alright, let's move on to the display. And I can say this model has a very unique screen with some features worth highlighting. I won't compare this screen with other devices because, as I said, it's very unique. We have a resolution of 1280 by 960, a 4:3 aspect ratio, and 120 Hz refresh rate. And what's the advantage of having the refresh rate up to 120 Hz, you ask? Simple. You reduce latency in games. This applies to both your beloved retro games and native Android games. It's more fluidity and responsiveness at your fingertips. But the great strength of this screen lies in its 960p resolution. It allows you to play some classic retro games like PlayStation, Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast at twice the original resolution, and even better, with perfect pixels. And with the 4:3 aspect ratio, which is the same as these systems, you enjoy everything in full screen, with a fantastic and immersive experience. It's like going back in time, but with an image quality you never imagined back then. What about the battery? This is another positive for this device. It ranges from 4 hours when running heavier systems like GameCube or PS2, and up to 10 hours playing something lighter like Game Boy or NES. But on average, I'd say you'll be looking about 7 to 8 hours of playtime. Let's talk a bit about the software. The RG Slide comes with Android 12, which is already a positive point for many, as it opens up a range of possibilities. But it's not the bare-bones, bland Android that we see out there. Anbernic has optimized it for retro gaming, and it already comes with a ton of emulators installed. The interface is clean, intuitive, and most importantly, fast. In the quick Android menu, you have options like fan control, a digital button mapper for physical buttons. You can change the button layout from Nintendo to Xbox, a screencast option, and here you have the Anbernic launcher. And I must say, Anbernic used to send me these devices without the memory card. I never cared about that because I'm used to setting up everything by myself and usually put the games I have on them. But since I had to buy the RG Slide, I decided to buy it with a 128GB card. And man, Anbernic makes the experience much more plug and play with this memory card. I just needed to put the card in the device, turn it on, and activate the RG launcher. You can use this button here. It automatically recognizes the games and systems in a very simplified way. From there, you just choose a system, a game, and just play. Seriously, even a chicken crossing a street, if it found the device on the ground, would know how to start a game. I still prefer a launcher like Emulation Station, but for those who don't have the time, don't know how, or don't have the patience to configure everything, buying with a memory card makes everything easier. And you can press Select and go to Settings, Theme Style, and choose a nicer theme. One cool thing in the settings that made all the difference for me is that by going to Slide Settings, you can change how the handheld behaves when you open and close it. The way I set up, when you open it, automatically unlocks, and when you close it, it goes into standby mode. And this makes everything easier when you want to have a quick gaming session. Need to stop in a hurry because you weren't paying attention to your child and he fell head first, or your wife is coming and you need to hide your new handheld from her? Just close it, put it away, and when you open again, it will be exactly where you left off. But now it's the time to see what this little guy can do. Starting with Game Pass streaming. Everything worked perfectly without any problems. The shoulder buttons aren't the best for these newer games, but it works. 8, 16 and 32-bit systems run very well on this chip, and you will be able to play everything smoothly. And since most of these systems have a 4:3 aspect ratio, they look beautiful in full screen on this 4.7-inch screen. The systems that shine most on the RG Slide for me are PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn and Dreamcast. These will run perfectly at 2x and with perfect pixels due to the screen's 960p resolution. And in full screen, they look gorgeous. Maybe there will be a little problem here and there with a specific Saturn game, but Street Fighter the movie, which is the best fighting game ever made, runs perfectly, and that's what matters. Nintendo DS and 3DS also run here. DS is very smooth, and all the games I tested run very well. 3DS is a bit heavier, and there will be a few titles that are more difficult to emulate. PSP is another system that won't have problems. Most games run at 2 or 3x without issues. And even though it's a widescreen system, the image is still quite large, even with the black bars at the top and bottom. PS Vita is another one that runs here, but not all titles. The emulator is very unstable and crashes constantly. GameCube runs well on the RG Slide, even with optimized graphics. Wii is a slightly heavier system, but you'll still be able to play several titles here. The same goes for PS2. Many games will run well, but depending on the title, you'll need to underclock it to make a bit more playable. Wii U ends up being a little too much for this device. There are even some titles that are playable here, but honestly, I don't see this handheld as a good option for this system. And I say the same about Big N's hybrid console. Although some titles run on the RG Slide, I don't think you should get this device to play these games. I prefer to think of the titles that run as a bonus and nothing more than that. As usual, I try to answer the main question of the review. Is the Anbernic RG Slide worth it? I think it depends on several factors. Your budget, if you already have a handheld, what do you want to play, among others. For me, the stylish design, considerable battery, fantastic analog sticks, top-notch build quality, the plug-and-play factor if you buy with the game card, and a screen that seems to have been made especially for retro games, this device should definitely be on your radar. But it's not all rainbows and butterflies. You have to overlook the anvil that this is, both in size and weight, and spend some time getting used to the ergonomics and the inline shoulder buttons. But I do think the RG Slide will take you back in time, letting you enjoy the nostalgic titles you rented from the video game store on Friday and only returned on Monday when you went to school. Or arcade titles from the mall where you spend your allowance money. And the best of all, with an image quality you never dreamed of back then. Now, a cow with an absurdly large head, an alien that fell to Earth, an experiment gone wrong that escaped from a lab, or a great white shark without teeth. If you are one of the creatures I mentioned, perhaps you shouldn't think twice before buying the RG Slide. For everyone else, fun is guaranteed. But if you enjoy this laid-back review, I'm sure you'll like this one here. But first, like, subscribe, and follow us.